appreciate the guidance that you're trying to give us right now. How does space weather and a space weather storm, how does that compare to an EMP attack, for example, in terms of the danger that we face? Maybe just we'll sort of that and go to that end.
That's an excellent question, and I know that there's been a community. I think the NRC has actually looked at that. In general, the severity of an EMP attack against the U.S. Compared to a Carrington-class event are in the same order of magnitude. If we were to have a Carrington-class event in the U.S. today that affected, say, the northeast of the U.S., you could potentially have, you know, days to weeks to months of power outages. And the problem is that the big transformers that distribute the power grid, when they're hit by this induced current and they blow out, they're not transformers sitting on the shelf to replace them. Each one of these things, the big ones, are custom built. I'm not talking about the telephone pole ones. So building those takes months to do, and they're not sitting around. So that's the problem.
So a space weather storm could give us that same impact that we've been warned about with EMP. What could, for example, could we have some space weather storm impact on us to the point that people might wake up one day and not be able to use any of their credit cards or use their cell phone or things like that?
Yes, I think that because I mean, just think of in the morning you plug in everything, you know, to an outlet or whatever. So that, you know, anything that requires an outlet now is going to be a problem, and so it does impact a lot of things. All of, you know, we're just so technologically dependent, not only on the ground but in space for our communication. So it would, you know, should such an event occur, it would impact a lot of.
For example,
yes.
Our GPS system could go down.
Yes, and I would even make a point that you know, it doesn't take a huge event like that for things to become impactful to us, even with the errors in GPS, even without an EMP or without a major solar storm. Just the irregularities in the ionosphere cause issues with communications and GPS signals, and so. It was mentioned that space weather happens all the time, and yes, it's punctuated with major storms, but we kind of live through it all the time.
So we're pretty well, not pretty well, but we have a certain degree of protection based on our own atmosphere and that's around the Earth. But so this means that as we go beyond the atmospheres, especially with satellites, yep. that and also deep space missions that this subcommittee oversees, that this is has to be a major consideration if we're expect to have a successful mission beyond that Earth atmosphere.
Yes, and I think if I could speak to the deep space aspect, there are really two issues that we can talk about space weather. One is this very strong variability that's driven by the sun and what's going on. But then there's a constant background radiation that's primarily due to the galactic cosmic rays. And this is a place where I think industry can come in and have a major role. That background radiation, while it may be low level, that's actually the biggest concern, at least for astronauts and humans out in deep space. And so understanding how to protect ourselves and shield ourselves from that, we don't have a good solution for that. And I think this is a place where we could put some emphasis as well.
Yeah. I have always been surprised at the dangers that the world faces that nobody even knows about or cares about. And I've often in this committee tried to draw our attention to the fact that an asteroid could actually be discovered that might hit the Earth, and that we should be prepared for it. And I think that what we're talking about today is on that magnitude, that we need to be aware that this would be an earth-shattering, there are potential earth-shattering events when it comes to this space weather storms and also the other things that we've been talking about. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership and in both the subcommittees. And let's work together to try to, it's our job to make sure we work on things that can bring down the damage that would be done on one of these natural threats. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rohr.